Thanks for coming today to episode number 250 with Neel Vasavada. And you're in for a treat. It was a great episode, a lot of fun to record. He is an incredibly smart guy. I really didn't know what to expect, to be honest, but to get a guy with a background like Neel has coming into the live events business, to bring that background with him, just an incredible guy, smart guy. And what he's doing with this sustainable power system and being able to power up these festivals completely using battery technology. He's that far ahead of everybody else out there. So I think you'll really enjoy it. I hope you do. I enjoyed recording it. And so enjoy and learn a lot about battery power systems as you go through it. So have fun. Hi, and thanks for joining today on Gears of Gear, episode number 250. This podcast is brought to you by Ultimate Support Systems, a part of ACT Entertainment. The BCM 300, which I'm using right here, this boom, is a deluxe broadcast mic stand from Ultimate Support, bringing fluid functionality and quality of life features together in a single sleek design, offering a fully extended 37-inch length cable management channel and clips, and an extended drop to better serve popular mic solutions, including the Shure SM7B, and of course the Rode Pod mic, which I'm using right here. The BCM 300 is both the most fully featured and most attractive broadcast mic boom in its price range. Get a mic stand that supports your investment and looks as good as you sound on podcasts, live streams, and conference calls. You can learn more about the BCM range of stands at www.ultimatesupport.com. And this podcast is also brought to you by GearSource. Founded in 2002 with an ambitious mission to support live events businesses buy and sell gear globally. Since that time, the company has transacted in more than 100 countries, selling $250 million in sound, lighting, staging, and video gear. GearSource continues to evolve the platform for massive global growth, enabling localized currencies, payments held in escrow to protect buyers and sellers, AI-powered logistics behind a new global logistics brand, and more. And by the way, we have updates this week with some of the bulk listings management features. Throughout 2024 and beyond, the company will continue to grow its toolbox for the benefit of users worldwide. So why not take full control over your gear with a visit to gearsource.com. It's funny, I still bop my head during that intro song. I love Gatto. I love the song. And by the way, Gatto's up to some fun things right now. He's remastering, I think, his entire catalog with Eddie Kramer, which should be incredible. He's doing these sort of up close and uncomfortable shows where he's doing very intimate shows where it's a combination of storytelling, comedy, and playing music. And he's really doing well with those and selling out every venue. They're all small venues, little theaters, little, not coffee houses, but, couple hundred people kind of thing. And sometimes it includes dinner and stuff. But Greg Godovitz, one of my favorite people, love the guy to death, one of my best friends, and just a super guy, talented musician, and a Beatles formationalist extraordinaire, historian. He knows more about the Beatles and really rock history, just music history. That guy is a walking encyclopedia. And I'm actually going to have him on again soon. He just doesn't really know how to work a computer very well, so we have to wait until his lovely woman is available to set him up to record on a computer. And so that should happen anytime soon here. I know Sarah's been working with him and his team, a.k.a. his woman. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that done because I love the guy and he's just fun to talk to. So, of course, I'm up in Canada. I'm at my house in Canada. You can tell from the background. It's different from my background in Florida, which is actually quite boring. And actually, that Beatles picture right behind me there came to me from Greg Godovitz. He gave it to me as a gift when he came to visit one time. But I had my 60th birthday up here, which has been really weird. You know, I know we all turn 60 at some point if we're lucky enough. And my father passed away at 52 a long, long time ago. So don't say, oh, I'm sorry, because it really was a long, long time ago. But, you know, so I consider myself lucky. I've already outlived him by 8 years, and I'm pretty healthy right now. I think the healthiest I've been probably since I was 15. And, you know, pretty clean living, lots of exercise, relatively good diet. I wouldn't say perfect, but pretty good diet. So I'm taking care of myself. However, at my 60th birthday party, I got sick. And so, you know, I was in bed by 9:30 at night and didn't wake up for 2 days or get up for 2 days. And I'm still sick. So, like, I don't know, going on 2 weeks, it'll be 2 weeks in a couple of days that I've had this thing. And I don't know if it was COVID or the flu or a cold. I think probably COVID, just based on the fact that it kind of started as a real heavy fever and massive headache and just body aches and everything else, like a flu. And then it kind of went down into my chest where massive coughs and sore throat and all that stuff, to now where it's just this long nagging cough and stuffy head, you know, like at night I can't breathe through my nose, and during the day I'm coughing and right on cue. And, you know, just this raspy voice and stuff, which some people would say is incredibly sexy. Not me. So, but anyways, turning 60 has been interesting. You know, a lot of reflecting, a lot of thinking about where I'm at in my life, where I wish I was at, where I want to be at, where I might have thought I'd be at by now, what I thought I might be doing. And guess what? Throw that stuff all out the window and just keep enjoying life. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm living every day like it's a gift, and trying to do my best, trying to be good to other people, trying to be grateful. And I reach out to a lot more people. You know, the Craig thing was definitely another should be unnecessary wake-up call for a guy who just turned 60, who's most of my friends are either in their 60s or coming up on 60 now too. And a lot of them are less healthy than me too. So, you know, I'm talking to people as much as I can now, and trying to make sure I reach out to people. I don't want to miss that opportunity. And I don't think I ever told this story. Again, back to Craig. So the night before the F1 race, which was my last day with Craig, he called me, and I was kind of like humming and hawing. I was kind of, you know, I've been at racetracks for the last 13 or 14 years with my son. I love being there, but I'd rather watch it on television when it comes down to actually watching a car race. And the problem is with car races, you know, it's about a 1:30 lap each time they go around. So, vroom, the car goes by. You don't see it again for a minute and a half. And even at the F1 race that I went to with Craig, we ended up watching most of it on the televisions in our beautifully air-conditioned suite that we were in. And so, you know, I was kind of like, I don't really feel like dealing with traffic and all the people and being at the track, and it's such a shit show. But I really wanted to see Craig. There was something nagging at me saying, do it. You got to go to this. And so I pushed myself and said, yeah. And I know everybody's rolling their eyes right now going, what a douche. You know, you couldn't decide if you wanted to go to the Miami Grand Prix, the F1 race of all F1 races and all this stuff. And, you know, again, I'm not saying I'm special, but I'm hardened, jaded, whatever you want to call it. I've been around racetracks an awful lot for the last 13, 14 years. And another day at a racetrack just to see a race that I could watch on television in 2 hours, it's just not worth it to me. So it was all about seeing Craig, hanging out with Craig. And also my son wanted to go. Jeremy wanted to go to the race. So I am so happy. Like, I almost made a decision that literally would have haunted me for the rest of my life. And so I'm so happy I made that decision. So anyways, what else here in Canada? Weird weather. So a couple of days ago, which would have been June 17th, we had fairly massive snow. So I looked out the window at, I don't know, 8 o'clock at night or something, 9 o'clock at night. And sure enough, huge snowflakes were coming down like crazy. And the next morning there was snow on the trees, snow on the ground. And we were just like, wow, this is weird, you know, June 17th, 18th, and there's snow coming down. And it's been pretty cold. Like this morning, what's the date today? June 19th, 35 degrees when I got up and went upstairs. And so it's not really summer weather quite yet, but I don't mind it. I love it. I love being able to wear some of my jackets and stuff. It's fun. And of course, in other news, the Panthers are currently playing the Edmonton Oilers, and I'm in enemy territory, which is really weird because it used to be where anything south of Edmonton in Alberta hated the Oilers. And in Edmonton, they loved their Oilers, of course. But right now, it's not just all of Alberta; it's all of Canada going for the Oilers. So I'm the enemy. I'm a Panthers fan. I've got my Panthers hoodie and Panthers shirts and stuff. And so I'm not super popular right now. And unfortunately, the Panthers are kind of making a mess of it. They went up 3-0. It was a foregone conclusion that they were going to finish probably in Edmonton in the fourth game. And lo and behold, Edmonton blows us out in game 4. Game 5, Edmonton looked like they were going to blow us out again. And then the Panthers came back, but lost it. So now we're still up 3-2, but we go back to Edmonton. And I'm just hoping it doesn't go 7 games. Like, certainly the television networks and the league and everybody hopes it goes 7 games, and then God forbid the Panthers win at home. But I don't know. My little ticker can't take it. I want them to just get it over with so I can get on with my life now. The market, the sound, lighting, video, live events market is still so crazy busy. It's like a lot of our top sellers and new sellers and stuff, they're all like, hey, I really want to sell this stuff, but everything I have is out right now. So can we figure out a way to maybe sell it and deliver it in September, or sell it starting in August and deliver it in September or whatever? And honestly, that's the smart way to do things. Like, a lot of companies are sitting back saying, hey, we're too busy right now to sell any gear. And, that's like saying, I'm too busy to exercise, or I'm too busy to make a salad for lunch. I'm just going to have a burger and French fries from the fast food joint down the street instead. Just because it serves the purpose and gets you past that short-term problem doesn't mean that it's good for you. And the same goes with your inventory. You should be managing your inventory all the time. And I know some of you listening are probably going, this doesn't involve me. I don't manage inventory. Sorry, I'm not going to take long. But I do really stress on the good habits of always turning over inventory. And one of my favorite people in the industry, Mike Cannon and Bob Cannon, who started this process and taught Mike, they sell gear while it's still new, basically. They sell gear while it's young. They don't wait until it's on its last legs or gone out of fashion or whatever. They're selling the latest version, and people are like, why are they selling that? It's the hottest thing going right now. Because they're going to replace it with either the same thing or maybe the new version of it or whatever. But that's a healthy business, continually upgrading, replacing, renewing your inventory, refreshing your inventory. It's also good for your financials, and I won't get into that right now, but it is. Turning over your assets is very good for your financials. And so, even though you're really busy right now and everything's out, let's have a conversation. Connect with my team. We'll have a conversation about how we can start planning to sell off some of your inventory in August or September, even though you're using it full time right now. It's 100% utilized. You're going to jump the queue. You're basically, come September, everybody's going to have warehouses full of stuff that they're looking to dump. And if you can jump in July or August instead, you're going to do really well. And then lastly, please remember to like and subscribe to our podcast. It helps a lot. Sarah's working really hard to gain a following on YouTube, on Meta, on even TikTok. She's got all kinds of stuff going on TikTok, but liking and subscribing really, really helps us. I would appreciate it if you did it. And so that's all about that. Now, on to today's guest. Today's guest is Neel. Oh, God, I'm going to screw this up, Neel. I'm so sorry. Neel Vasavada, who is the founder and president of Overdrive Energy Solutions. Neel is the driving force in the movement to bring green technology to the events industry. His engineering background and experience with both sustainable energy and live entertainment development has led him to found Overdrive Energy Solutions, along with his co-founder, Jahn Hardison. Overdrive has become a leader in sustainable energy for live events. In 2023, a partnership with sustainability nonprofit Reverb.org resulted in the 2 largest solar-powered stages in U.S. history. The first was Willie Nelson's Luck Reunion, which we've spoken about on here with Richard Cadena, which reduced fossil fuel use for stage power by 95%. In August, Overdrive made history with the largest temporary solar field ever for a U.S. festival, powering parts of Billie Eilish's headlining set at Lollapalooza Chicago. Overdrive has also provided power at notable events and venues such as Coachella, Google's I/O Developer Conference, and Dodger Stadium, with over 2.5 megawatt hours of energy deployed. Moving forward, Neel is committed to developing cost-efficient, reliable, and clean energy systems for live events and beyond. So please join me in welcoming Neel to the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, Neel Vasavada. And I think I might have almost gotten that right in the intro, but how you doing, Neel?
You did, and I'm doing well. Thank you.
Aha. Yeah, good. Well, I appreciate you doing this. This has sort of been in the works ever since Richard Cadena's most recent recording on this podcast, where, I mean, he probably spent 30 minutes talking about the Willie Nelson thing and how well it went, and how he even had some fears and things, where we better have a lot of diesel generators in the background just in case this implodes on us. And so I guess we'll talk a little bit about that today. But so, Neel, as I said in the intro, and I kind of read your bio. So you're the founder and president of Overdrive Energy Solutions,
Co-founder.
Okay. And so energy, what would you say is sort of the elevator pitch of what Overdrive Energy Solutions is or does?
We're dedicated to reducing and eventually eliminating the use of diesel and gasoline and other internal combustion engines in live events.
That's a huge statement. And I
and
know
beyond.
Yeah. Well, and I know that live events has wanted this for a while, not because they hate, using generators or whatever. I think in some cases that is the case, but I think everyone, and, led by people like Billie Eilish, who I know was a huge advocate of this, they want more sustainable tours and shows out there, festivals, etc. Correct?
Yeah, and Marcel, it's not just about sustainability. Let me start off by saying that diesel generators are a terrible way to make power.
Why is that?
Well, they're not reliable. They're only reliable in the sense that we've had them for 100 years. But how often do we deploy twin packs? How often do we have cold backups in our world? You would think that after a century, they could figure out a way to make this power source absolutely bulletproof. They're not particularly efficient. They're not good at turning diesel fuel into electricity. The bleeding edge of technology might have 40% of the energy that's in that fuel actually becomes electricity. They're polluting. The fumes aren't pleasant. There's not a whole lot going for them except the fact that we've had them for so long that people know how to use them. They understand them very well. And I don't want to take that away from them. Familiarity is a big thing. But let's see here. Let's compare diesel technology to what we generally call electrification, right? Which is storing energy in some way and then deploying it. The battery generator systems, all right? So the systems that we specifically are using to get rid of diesel are we're calling battery power stations, or just sometimes power stations. And they have two fundamental components that are in every system. One is energy storage, and the other is an inverter. And you can think of them like a car. You have an engine, that's your inverter. That's how much power you can make. That's what makes the power. And then you have your gas tank, which is your battery. That is first where you store that energy to make the power and what you have to refuel. In pretty much every metric, every measurement that we use in the live events world, whether it's actually, a qualitative number based or just subjective, how we feel about it, the battery power station is a better way to power our concerts. It is fundamentally more reliable. I think we conflate familiarity and reliability a little bit here, but the simple fact is that battery systems and inverter systems, They have very few moving parts. They operate at much lower temperatures, and they're also 100 years old. They've been around, and they've been in heavy use, just not in our world.
The application is new. Yeah, not the
The
technology.
application is new.
Yeah.
They're silent with with modern the kinds of batteries that we use. They can be placed very close to the loads, so you don't need to be further away. In a lot of places, you need to be at least 20 feet away from the load with the generator. Some places, quite a bit more. You don't have to do that with the battery system, and they're actually cost effective. In fact, I believe that they should be cheaper than diesel generators. So there's a notion that sustainable energy or sustainability in general is a cost adder, that it's more expensive. That's another thing that we're really trying to address the conversation around that. So we have this technology that is actually cleaner. It's more sustainable, obviously. It's safer. It's more reliable. It's actually cost effective too, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So what's the downside? The downside is how long it takes to fill the gas tank.
Yeah.
And that is it.
Well, just being devil's advocate for a second, the couple of things that I've heard brought up. One is the source of the components for the batteries. The fact that little kids are shoeless and digging in these mines in Africa and stuff. And secondly, the footprint that, although it's more sustainable and it's very efficient and all of those things, it's large. You need a lot of space, not just for the batteries, but maybe for if you're using a solar farm to recharge the batteries or whatever. So what about those things?
Well, it's interesting, Marcel. See, you just highlighted two things. The first is misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation and dated
Of
information
course, yeah.
about technology out there. So misinformation is what's behind a lot of the conversation on the safety of batteries.
And isn't it funny that none of that started until Elon Musk bought Twitter and pissed everybody off, and then they started turning him into Satan?
Well, no, because it was true. And it is true. It is true that certain batteries are made of toxic chemicals that are rare in mind in questionable practices. So the most common electric car battery, and this is also similar to, I think, batteries that are in a lot of consumer goods and stuff, are called lithium NMC, which is NMC stands for nickel, manganese, and cobalt. These chemicals are the ones that are that have a lot of controversy around them. They are crucial in some automotive batteries to allow you to discharge and charge at very high rates. So, they're still pretty common in the electric car world, but the misinformation part. First of all, the quantities of these chemicals in the electric car world and things like that have dropped considerably over the years. So they're a fraction of what they were 10 years ago.
Right.
But actually, none of that matters. Because Marcel, the batteries that we use, the batteries that are ubiquitous in stationary energy storage these days, which also happen to be the batteries that are in the standard range Teslas, I think the Ford Mustang Mach-E uses these kind of batteries, are called lithium iron phosphate. Lithium iron phosphate batteries have none of those chemicals. They're 100% recyclable. In fact, they rewrite the book on what you and other people might be used to on batteries. One of the first things is they have a very, very long lifespan. In our application, they last 10 to 20 years. And
wow.
It's not even accurate to say they last 10 to 20 years. The manufacturers rate them as the end of their service life when they are at 80% of their new capacity.
Oh,
and as you know, batteries degrade with time. So, so really, at the end of that life cycle, they still have use. You just have to add 20% more. So you might want to use them in an application where they're not moving from place to place. They are also 100% recyclable. They also don't have thermal runaway issues. So there's a very specific test, UL 9540A, that is conducted to see how a battery pack handles fire. And we've all heard concerns about electric vehicle fires. And, once one of these things get burning, the electric vehicle, the NMC style packs, it's really hard to put them out. That said, I think don't quote me on this because I haven't seen the latest statistics, and I believe there's some new things out. But last I saw, electric vehicles are like they're 1/10 or 1/100th. That's what I don't want. I'm not sure which one it is, and that's a pretty big range. I understand.
Yeah.
Less likely to catch fire in the first place, so there's good there. It's bad, but again, that doesn't apply to what we're talking about here. Lithium, when you with the batteries that we use, when you try to light one of these batteries on fire, the fire does not spread inside of the battery. So they don't do that thermal runaway thing. That's what they call it when a battery catches fire and it spreads throughout the pack and you can't put it out.
Thermal runaway.
So thermal runaway. So again, the answer to your first question is non-issue on all fronts, and hasn't been an issue in this world for about 5 years.
That's good.
So, but we, I get asked that question a lot. So, and then the second thing, I'm not sure where that's coming from because the systems that we use are significantly, well, I shouldn't say significantly. They're usually either equal in size or smaller than the equivalent diesel generators that we're using.
Including refueling? Including solar
batteries,
farm?
Yeah. Well, no. Now, see, the solar farm is just a way to refuel the batteries, right? It's just a way to recharge them, okay? I guarantee you that if you built an oil refinery on site, it would be a lot bigger than the solar farm. So I don't think that that's really a fair assessment either, because that's a benefit. And it's not that, one of the things about energy storage these days, about batteries, is that we've come a long ways in terms of how much we can store. Really, I think the bigger problem is charging times. But if you think about it, all you have to do is match what a diesel generator does in terms of runtime, and then there's all sorts of ways. There's a whole menu of ways to mitigate the fact that you can't recharge a generator as fast as you can recharge a battery power station as fast as you can refuel a diesel generator.
Right.
If you try really, really hard, you're going to find use cases where a diesel generator is better. In fact, you don't have to try that hard. There's definitely use cases where a diesel generator makes sense. But we don't deploy solar farms for a lot of the shows that we do because we size all of our gear to have at least a full day of runtime, right? So if you're going to be running around at an event and refueling generators, it's really no different to deal with the batteries. Now, are you going to recharge the batteries? Well, in some places you can. Some places you have the ability through a variety of means to charge them overnight. So the fact that it might take you 5 hours to charge instead of 5 minutes isn't a significant issue. But that's that's one tool in your shed. And this is going to be a point that I'm going to bring up again and again and again. We have so much more flexibility when using batteries that even though there are things that batteries and battery power stations might not do as well as diesel, which again really is how much energy, how much power you can put out, and how quickly you can refuel it.
So do you have some kind of like planning software or something that creates an algorithm that says, based on your show, here's the best solution? So it's to use a battery 4 times as big as what we need because it's going to allow us to go the whole weekend, or to use more batteries, or to have backups, or to charge overnight. Like, do you have something that helps make that decision, or is that all human done?
We have a whole slate of tools to do that, including some software. Like I said, what I was going to say is that in order to recharge, refuel, we have several options. We have, first of all, of course, there's recharging, right? Second of all, there's battery swapping, right? So we can just swap out batteries, okay? And then, of course, the third thing is to just simply have enough batteries to make your runtime. So those are the reasons why I don't think space is a big concern.
Right. And so what's the most common? Is it swapping, or?
It's completely. Now, I will say one thing. Because of all of the options and all the different ways we can do things, okay, using renewable energy requires a very different skill set. And to people who are very familiar with generators and how generators work and are really invested in how that works, it can seem complicated, and it can be counterintuitive. So really what we do when we look at an event is we reimagine the whole power grid. And we ask ourselves, what are the loads? What are the things we're trying to run? Where are they? Are the energy demands? How long do they have to run? What are the available charging sources that are already here? What charging sources can we set up and build? And then we apply that solution to every load on the show. So I'm going to cut to an example from 2 weeks ago. No Values Festival in Pomona at the Pomona Fairplex here in Southern California. The first roughly 250,000 square feet from the entry gates forward all the way to front of house at the first stage that you hit were completely diesel free, done by Overdrive Energy Solutions. That includes the box office, the 6 box office trailers, merchandise. There was out of show merchandise, in-show merchandise, fulfillment, guest services, charging lockers. There was there's security scan and gates, and then there was also several offices for different departments in that area. We went from, I figure looking at the plot, they would have split that up into probably 4 diesel generators and distroed out to everything. We ran, we think 30 units there.
Oh, wow.
30 individual
so you're getting
units.
Closer to the power is needed.
Well, hear me out. There's 30
Less
individual
distro.
units.
Yeah.
5 cable ramps. All of them were back of house. We're talking merch, security, everything. 5 cable ramps was all there was. Okay. Everything was set up so there was no refueling or no recharging needed. We ran 18 in that area alone. There were 12 offices with 18 different air conditioning units in them. And we ran them for 3 days, 90 plus degree weather, with no issues. Now, someone might say, well, you ran 30 generators instead of 30 smaller units instead of 4 generators. My response is, when you look at how much distro wasn't there, it was actually a simpler and easier installation. Now, if you've spent your entire career working with generators and all you know are generators, it looks more complicated. Just like if you've spent your entire life riding bicycles and you look at a car, the car is going to look more complicated.
But it's
a different thing.
That makes so much sense. Like that you can get the power to where it's needed as opposed to, put a big lump sum of power and then distribution to get it out to where it's needed.
Marcel,
smart.
we've done, I think we've passed 50 events in the last, give or take 3 years. This year we have had 0 failures, 100% uptime across all the events we've done. Last year we were at over 99%. We had 1 system go down in March of 2023, and that went down for about 30 minutes, and that was the first and last time we had anything like that happen. We've been working with...
what failed?
What failed? I failed. I had the backup battery set up wrong, and it was one of our first shows. That was human error back then. Well, my point is that the systems are that reliable. They're so reliable that on customers that we regularly work with, we often get the call when a generator fails. You got a diesel unit, because they know that I can get out there, deploy the battery, and get them up and running faster than they're going to pull the generator out and bring a new generator in. We do Burning Man every year. We've done it for years, and it's really interesting watching all the generators fail in the heat and dust while the battery systems go. So they're more reliable, and we're not dealing with, this is an amateur hour. Our last, the shows that we've been doing this year, we did South by Southwest. About Luck Reunion. That's not a huge show, but it's very boutique, high touch. We've done all of AEG Golden Voices festivals, I think all of them down here in Southern California so far this year, including Coachella, Stagecoach. And, we just finished No Values in Pomona. We did stuff at the Rose Bowl. We did Google I/O, which is their largest developer conference. It's at Shoreline Theater in Menlo Park. These aren't small potatoes. 50 events, major users. We've deployed 400 amp services reliably, so it hasn't been, there's not a limitation in terms of power. And the question is, what's this all about? Everything that we do is backed by data. So it's really hard to say that what the claims that we're making are in some way distorted or invalid, because again, we're very transparent. You'll find that we promote what we do a lot, not just because we want people to see what we do and come and earn their business, but we're trying to show people how reliable this stuff is. So you wrap that all up, everything I just said. Why have we had this success? Why are we have this? Why are we having this luck? Why are, a bunch of roadies from SoCal able to do this? And this is a space where the large traditional power suppliers have been struggling. They are learning and they're starting to deploy stuff, and I think that's great. But what is it? And the thing is that to use sustainable energy does take a different mindset and a different approach. And it just so happens that me and my co-founders are a very happy accident that has that background.
Yeah. So a bunch of questions. One is, when you, like you said, you're doing all these big shows, Google I/O and Coachella and all this stuff. Are you getting the call for battery systems or for sustainable power solutions? Or are you getting the call for generators and convincing them to switch to battery solutions?
No, we're a battery solutions company. So we get the call for sustainability a lot of the time. However, Overdrive is very much focused on providing cost-effective, production-friendly systems. By that, I mean this stuff is sustainable, or it enables sustainability. It's much cleaner. It has all of those benefits, but that's not why you should be using it. Well, I shouldn't say that. That's not the only reason you should be using it, Marcel. You should be using it because it's a better way to power the show. I can tell you.
Is it more stable as far as the power? Like, there's not the spikes and stuff that you sometimes get off generator power?
Yes, and more. So first of all, it's more stable, and that's not just me talking. We have data logs for every single event that we have. At this point, we have gigabytes of data. And one of the neat things is looking at something that's been running for 16 or 20 hours, with highly variable loads on it, and seeing that across 3 phases, you're only seeing a 1 volt deviation over that entire time. Frequency, like you're at 60 hertz and you're at 60 hertz and you're at 60 hertz, period.
Yeah.
So first of all, because we're not dealing with a rotating mass that has to accelerate and decelerate and all that stuff to generate our power, it's fundamentally much cleaner. But there's more. So inverter systems, the engines that we're talking about, are by design, they typically can handle up to 100% overload for short bursts. And this is sort of a linear relationship between rated load and overload. So you can actually run on the systems you can run 30% overrated for a half hour. What does this mean?
Interesting.
In the world that we live in, live entertainment, we have a lot of very dynamic loads in lighting, in audio, very dynamic loads. And these systems are actually better suited to run those loads than a generator. You don't have to worry about balancing your loads across phases. We've done some pretty hilariously unbalanced loads, and it just doesn't matter. So again, I can keep going. I can go on and on and on, but this is a better way to power our events. It's definitely sustainable, but it is a better way.
Are you guys manufacturing the components, or are you using something from another industry that you're repurposing?
Well, we're manufacturing the gear. Any electronic or any assembly these days is made of components that are made other places. So, our gear is custom manufactured for live entertainment. We use UL certified batteries and inverters. We use gear that was originally designed and is often used in harsh environment applications. So the inverters we use, they're very common in yachts and ocean-going vessels and things like that. They're designed to be working in those harsh environments. And the batteries that we use, for example, I think the roots are really in telecom, but these are very, very commonly used for industrial commercial backup systems. We incorporate them into a shock-mounted enclosure and things like that to protect them. But then there's things that that are completely our own design. The input-output stuff, although we use standard cam locks, and other sort of connectors to accomplish it. The way that we laid them out, the way we mount them, the way we access them, It's all our own design. And
Yeah.
the reason it is because one of the things that we lean on that makes these activations work is the modularity and scalability of these components. And there's so many different ways we can go into that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm guessing there's not IP in the actual technology, but your IP really is more in the application and the experience and the knowledge of not only using these, but in, just what can and how, what the break conditions would be, what the optimal conditions are, and all of those. Like, somebody can come to you with a Coachella and you know exactly what to do, whereas someone else would be experimenting.
How about this? I don't know what to do. And by design, we've designed our system so that you don't need to know as much. And that's that
Interesting.
production friendly approach to it. So, there's, I think that again, you could just, they're fundamentally so different. It really requires a different mindset. But, let me talk about briefly. I'd like to talk about where we came from in the first place, so people
Yeah, that'd be
understand
good.
why
That'd be
I
good.
make these
Yeah.
claims. Why
It's
is it so
usually
different? Why is
usually
it
where I
us?
start from the beginning. This time I started from like 2/3 of the way through, but
Some days I wake up and I think I'm the luckiest guy on earth. Some days I wake up and I figured out, and I think I figured out how
cursed.
to ruin everything I love.
Yeah, I get it.
um,
Trust me.
and there's a couple, and me and one of my business partners, Sean, we both had a very similar path. My background is in hybrid electric vehicles and electric vehicle technology. Going all the way back, I think the first electric vehicle I started working on was in 1994, and I worked in that space. Eventually, I went to the University of Wisconsin and graduated with an engineering degree from there. While I was there, did student projects with the U.S. Department of Energy and the big three automakers. And then, a couple years after I graduated, I worked in professional motorsports for a little while. Then I started a company called Apex Speed Technology, which was all about control systems and data acquisition
Which is
systems.
a whole other conversation we need to have, because I've been around racing for 14, 15 years with my kid. And
What does he
he's
race?
still he's doing all kinds of different formula stuff. He's big on open wheels. So I mean, he came through 10 years or 8 years of karting, and then the last 3 or 4 years have been open wheel, mostly in Europe.
Well, I
Um,
haven't discussed this on any podcast at all, but I was an engineer in IndyCar. I was an
oh
engineer
wow.
in IRL, Formula Atlantics. I haven't done any
Do you know
open
John
wheel stuff.
Betos?
I don't know. I haven't done any of that stuff since the early 2000s.
He's an
But
old timer. He's an old timer. I mean,
I
he's
probably,
sort of the mentor that brought my kid up in car racing. But Betos, Formula Atlantic, you would have bumped into him at some point, because most of the cars and the
probably.
components of the cars came through him. Him and his brother owned a company called Primus Racing.
Oh, I think I heard of them. Yeah. I worked
Yeah,
with Hasselgren back in the day, and I think I worked with Dorcott and Hilton and Brooks Racing and all these things. This is going back 20 plus years. But, something interesting happened at that time because I had this background in electric vehicle technology. We ended up working with early stage Tesla. I think it was even back before Model S was released, providing them with data acquisition systems.
right.
Zero electric motorcycles. I think we did some work with them with wiring and harnesses and stuff like that. We worked with the U.S. Department of Energy. We helped do data acquisition stuff for the Automotive X Prize, the Progressive Automotive X Prize.
Right.
All of this
Yeah.
stuff. So I had a foot in that door, and then around the 2008 recession, that business really, really slowed down. And I ended up helping a buddy of mine. And one thing led to another. And I ended up working in the live music business, specifically working with infrastructure stuff, barricade, flooring, things like that, on large stadium tours and music festivals.
Interesting.
And I actually helped
What a
build
strange path, though. Engineering school to
cars and
racing
rock and roll. Like I
to
said,
rock and roll. Yeah. Crazy.
my childhood dreams and my daily nightmares. Um,
Yeah. 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 I don't know which
but
is which.
yeah, exactly, right? So, I had this thing where I had this deep engineering technical background in batteries, electrical systems, all that stuff. And then I've spent 12 years now working on some of the largest, most complicated productions in our world. Now, Now Sean, he graduated with a master's in electrical engineering with a focus in solar to a job market that didn't have a lot going. I think he might have to correct me on this, but I think like his campus job was flying an inflatable mascot in their school's arena.
Oh my God. That's hilarious.
And that, so when he couldn't find a job, a good competitive job in the solar industry, he ended up being Roger Waters' pig pilot.
No
And
way.
Sean Jacobs is the pig pilot. He's still the pig pilot. He's
Are
been
you
flying the pig
kidding
for
me?
Roger Waters since something like 2008 or something like that.
That is
He's also
unbelievable.
gone on to be head carp for Roger. He's been a carp on Green Day, Coldplay. Overdrive is currently touring with Green Day in Europe right now. Sean's with them. We're not doing energy. We just put out our first teaser about it, and I can talk if you put a pin in this. We'll talk about what we're doing with Green Day maybe at the end of this podcast. But the point
Perfect.
is that we're both these, we're the third kind of leg in the stool is Boxer. He runs Bigger Hammer Production Services, longtime tour manager, production manager. Now he has a crewing company, a well-known crewing company, and he's a conservationist. He has had solar on his warehouse, at his home. He's been driving electric cars for many, many years. So he's a production guy who has practical experience. We're production people who have engineering experience, and the pandemic happened,
Yeah.
and we had no
Yeah.
touring to do. So
Yeah.
when the pandemic happened, I actually ended up talking to some of my colleagues at the U.S. Department of Energy, who's still there, and I was really, I was really surprised, and by what they were telling me about how far that technology has come. And so we started messing around with it uh, on our own. Literally, did the startup thing, built a shed in my backyard back there. We called it Overdrive Labs, uh,
That's
and
awesome.
10 by 10 shed, and started playing with stuff there. We did our first event, um, which was a movie night on the beach for a fitness group here in Santa Monica, California. I think it was in April or May of 2023. And it was 16, no, 15 months later, we did Billie Eilish's headlining set at Lollapalooza.
Jesus. That's
Um,
that's some serious movement, growth. That's
that's
wild.
and that's with the reliability and everything we're talking about. And I think the reason why we've progressed this quickly and we've had the reliability and we've been able to deliver is because we're looking at it from a completely different lens. It just the questions that you started off with, right? Toxic batteries and what was the second one again? It was toxic batteries and they take up a lot of space. Well,
Yeah.
that's the surface stuff. Just wait till you start digging. And you have,
Yeah.
we have all day. This, by the way, is why Richard is so awesome. I'm in awe of that guy. He's a dear friend, and I really look up to him because we've had a lot of skepticism. A lot of people
Yeah.
say you can't do that, and they say you. I always like try to come up with a good analogy for it. They say you can't do that because there is you know, there's a post in the middle of that path. You can't go that way. But there's nothing securing the path. Did anyone check and see? We could just, or post, we can pick it up, move it, and then go
Yeah.
past it.
Yeah.
No one's doing that. And so, um, that's what this whole journey has been about is building a company. And now you asked about IP. Actually, now we're getting into sort of the development timeline, the path that Overdrive is taking. So there's very much technical IP in what we do. Um,
Really.
yes, absolutely. The way our connection systems work, the way that things work together, everything is modular. Right then and there is IP. And I've actually, we're working on a raise right now. We're working on scaling, and so these are things that we've been speaking with legal
Yeah, I mean,
professionals and stuff on.
my concern is always that, a bunch of yahoos can get together and save up some cash or get a small investment and go buy a bunch of battery packs off of, Alibaba or something. and end up in a pickle, and could
Yahoos.
do a lot of harm not only to our industry but to your brand. You know what I mean? Like so.
Marcel, we're not seeing this as Yahoos. We're seeing the largest diesel generator rental companies on earth buying batteries and
Oh
having
wow.
issues. It really is the happy accident that's brought us to where we are. It's not the fact that we are the best. Yeah, I actually joke that, we're such terrible engineers that they kicked us out and made us go work in rock and roll instead. Right? We're
Yeah.
not the smartest engineers, yet I work with our vendors and our suppliers. It's always interesting when you're in a meeting with somebody who's obviously way smarter than you, but because of an experience or a perspective, you can open their mind to something.
Well,
And
and herein lies the opportunity. Like, you seem to downplay a little bit the package that you bring, and there's not very many people in our industry who went all the way through school, B, have engineering degrees and stuff, and end up going to work for car companies, helping to produce electric cars and the technology behind it, and then find their way into live events. That doesn't happen very
yeah,
often.
it doesn't
It
happen
doesn't
very often.
happen
But
very
then
often.
there's not a lot of
So it's a
50-year-old
really
engineers who are
interesting.
losing fingernails from slamming them in things at 3 in the morning. If I was smarter, I might have a nice 401k and a cushy
but
desk in Detroit.
but you're having a lot of fun, and
Yeah, no,
that.
in all seriousness, I just wanted to
But that
address what you said
package,
about.
that combination of skill set and knowledge doesn't exist, and that's why someone like you can come into a very old industry that's done things, not very old, I shouldn't say that, a 100, not even 100 years old, 60-year-old industry, whatever it is, that's done things a very particular way. And our industry is definitely stuck in our ways quite often, where it's like, well, that's how we've always done it. Like you said, there's a pole in the way. Well, let's move the pole. But I think a guy with your sort of package of skills and knowledge is very rare in our industry.
And that's
Even
where we're
Kadena
we're
is
having
very
a lot
rare
of
in our
fun.
industry. Yeah.
And I got to say, we're having a lot of fun. And so we're bouncing around in a lot of places right now. But what I was talking about with what comes off as downplaying, and I know listen, I almost feel like I have to, because we can do it the other way if you want. We've done 50 shows, plus shows. We've had no failures. I've already talked about that. The clients, the people working in those spaces love it. The artists love it. The production people love it. The controllers love it. You know, we're hitting it out of the ballpark.
Yeah.
But no one wants to hear that, because then you sound like it's actually less believable if I just lay it out like that. And everyone thinks those things are true. So what I think you hear from me is I'm trying to bring a sense of balance to this. I'm trying to explain to people, listen, when we talk about these benefits, they are real, okay? And lest someone thinks that we are and whenever you have a lot of skepticism, people think that you're inflating things. It happens,
Mm-hmm.
and it's human nature. So when I speak, I try to be very, very clear and transparent about where it came from. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not the stupidest people in the world, right? So yeah, I'll give
Yeah.
you that.
Yeah.
Like, I've worked hard to gain this knowledge, and we've broken a lot of stuff to get here. But the
Yeah.
point is that the the reason we're successful is because of the time, energy spent that getting here. This is not,
Yeah.
what is it like? I'm sure there's a meme out there somewhere about what you're paying for when you hire a professional. Here this is 35 years of messing around with this stuff. Is where we got to where we're at. And it's also, you're
Yeah.
right, that is part of our IP, is simply the fact that it's hard for other people who are invested in that world to get their head around it and to look at things a different way. And you really do have to look at everything from the software perspective, from the hardware perspective, from the labor perspective differently in order to
Yeah.
get, a good result.
Wow. I mean, it seems really clear to me that you guys would be a massive acquisition target for some of the cat and the big Sunbelt scenic or
So
Sunbelt,
let
what are
me
they called? You know what I mean? Like those companies will look at you and go, "Oh my God, like we're never going to acquire as much talent and experience as these guys have. Let's just acquire them."
I was hoping that would be the case when we first started. And, maybe we still could be an acquisition target, but we're learning how different it is from a lot of their business models. First of all, um, the battery systems, they uh, they require a lot less distro. And the same companies that you're talking about, let's look at their revenue model for a second. Okay,
Hmm.
they have these generators which have a service life. Every time you use them, they're worth less than the last
Hmm.
time you use them. Right? You're wearing them
Yeah.
out. Okay, they need maintenance. They need repairs. So there's an ongoing overhead cost to them. Okay, then you have distro, and most of it is very simple. It's copper.
Yeah.
And what's
Very
crazy is
profitable.
if you look at the prices of copper, a lot of the distro that's owned by these companies, it's not just that it's been paid off ages ago, it's worth more now as
Yeah.
scrap than it
That's
was
true.
new in
That's true.
1998 when they got it or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to look at optimizing a grid. All right. First thing they have to face is that all of their operations, okay, you're going to have to retrain everybody. Sure, we can talk about it at the C level. Our publicly traded generator company wants to be sustainable. Tell
Yeah.
that to the guy behind the desk in Stuart, Florida. Tell
Yeah.
him or her to stop using diesel generators and go to this totally different technology, right? So
Yeah.
there's that.
It's a
Um,
huge cultural shift
it's a
too.
huge culture shift.
Yeah.
Facilities, right? They have to,
Yeah.
we've all heard, or some of us have heard how Hertz really struggled to add electric cars to their fleet,
Yeah.
and they've had to backtrack now and things like that. So you have that. Every time they deploy these things, if they're deploying them correctly, they're cannibalizing the best revenue they have, the
I
most
know.
profitable stuff.
That's the
And
tough
I
part.
don't know what your experience is, but I've been on shows where the distro bill was almost as much as the generator. Actually, I think I've been on a show where the distro bill was higher than the cost of the generator. Right? And
Yeah.
then when you put the labor to put in distro,
Yeah.
how much does an 8-hour call of union electricians cost in Chicago?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Huge.
they have to do that labor, they have to do that distro. So what do we see? What we see in the market predominantly right now is people replacing large generators with large batteries. I think that's where some of the perceptions that we've talked about come from. Okay? The thing about electrification components is that they're almost perfectly scalable. I can take a megawatt battery generator system. Okay, I can take a huge battery generator system and charge a cell phone with it, and it's actually still pretty much just as reliable or as efficient as if it was running 750 kilowatts at 3/4 of its maximum load. But you can take that 1 megawatt system, and if it's designed properly, the components within it allow this. You can split it up into 10, 100 kilowatt systems,
Yeah.
right?
That makes a
You,
ton of sense.
it's not very easy to do that with generators. So our systems, very specifically, the ones that we built, you can go all the way 10 kilowatts to 150 kilowatts with the same components. You can add battery capacity, in what's called 5 kilowatt hours. That means it would run a 5,000 watt load for an hour, all the way to 640 just by connecting them. You can hot swap them. You can actually add batteries while you're running. You can take batteries
Oh, that's
away and take them
interesting.
to charge while you're running. This is where it gets fun. We can parallel inverters in different ways. We have a unit we call the Pro 60. At its core, it's a 6,000 watt generator system inverter. Okay, you can run two of them together, and there's a way with software and communications cables to connect them. And now you have a 240 volt split phase system. You can
Interesting.
six kilowatts, so 50 amps per phase. Take three of them. Now you got a three-phase system. Now all of a sudden we've got an 18K three-phase generator. But there's more.
Hmm.
You can also stack them in the other direction. You want 18K 120 volts single phase, you can run three of them like that. All the way up to 36 kilowatt three
Oh,
phase.
that's wild.
So
Yeah.
I have all I
Super
need is this.
flexible.
I have 9 boxes that one person can roll around easily in my trailer. These are I forget the exact dimension, but they're like the 3/4 truck pack, where one way they're 3 wide, the other way they're 4 wide, in
Yeah.
a truck. That one component can be used in so many different applications. You can Lego it together the way you want. The same thing with our Pro 600, which is 10 times the size. It's nominally 60 kilowatt, can go all the way up to 180 kilowatts, three phase. So we have the ability to go around and tailor our loads to what we need. The separation distance for the big systems is 5 feet. A lot of our systems are exempt. They're small enough where they're exempt from some of these codes. So you can put them, right? We have a problem that some of my guys have real concerns about, which they should have real concerns about. And that is people putting their drinks on our gear. Personally, I'm not encouraging it, but I love it. Because I know that the chances of someone knocking a drink over and it getting into that enclosure the way it's designed are very, very low. Even if it got into the enclosure, these things have seen some stuff. Like I've had units in green fields where we didn't know there were sprinklers,
Ouch.
I'm not encouraging this. Like, think about this for a second. In what world would it be a problem that people keep putting their drinks on a diesel generator?
Yeah.
In what world is your power supply for the entire bar at the back of house, right? Or at the back of the bar, or in the bar, or under the bar, So there's so much flexibility that can happen. I'm going to tell you another thing too that's going to blow your mind. So one thing I'm going after is supplemental generators. I mean, there's one thing about making festivals green, but as an engineer, the first principles sort of engineer in me, I'll never be comfortable with seeing diesel generators at venues in urban areas. We did Dead & Company last year, and we had, I think they were megawatt twin packs, 500 kilowatt units at Fenway, at Wrigley Field, quite a few other destinations. But, we're in a business where we bring generators to places with power because there's not enough power or it's not reliable. So all of our units can do the following. Not only can they power things, but they can actually boost things. And we do this all the time now. So we did this in South by Southwest. They had a 100 amp service in the park that we were working in. The stage needed, two 200 amp services or something like that. We had our unit, the Pro 60, which was capable of boosting, Pro 600, capable of boosting those things by 100 amps. What we could do was we could take in 100 amps and add 100 amps to it and output 200 amps. And this is where it gets really fun, is when the load was drawing more than 100 amps, it would take the remainder of the power from our system, our batteries, our inverter. But when it was less, it was charging our system. So we're working like a big sponge.
Interesting.
So we did that at South by. We did it at 2 Coachella events. We did it at a Interscope Records, Capitol Records party. They had a mansion for their, what did they call it? They call it Party in the Desert. Every year, Coachella weekend one, celebrities and executives in the music industry and all that stuff. They had a catering operation that they would typically bring a supplemental generator out for. Well, all we had to do was plug our unit into a 20 amp, or even actually it was a 15 amp Edison, and we could output 50 amps. And actually we could have output 50 amps continuously on that system for about 4 hours. But obviously no one's pulling 50 amps continuously. And actually in all of these applications, the state of charge of the battery when we picked it up was 100%, because whatever they drain, they're always putting it back, right? Now it gets even more. So we did another thing where we had a large video wall running again off of a 15 amp regular plug in a house. We had everything sized for 30 amps for that video wall, so we could boost that. But there's more. All of these systems can work as UPSs as well. So let's say that we had grid power and we had one of our systems. Okay? If the grid were to go down, if you have a power failure, if we size our system properly, it can continue to power the load until our bank of batteries is dead, which, when these grid tight systems, we try to go several hours. So that actually happened at the Capitol Records party. They lost power in the house. They had a power failure in the house. The catering operation stayed up and running. There were no issues, And so if we ever have a grid failure or something like that, we have several hours to fix the problem. I mean, these are all things that aren't, obviously they're not features of generators. They're not intuitive to people, but once you learn these details and then you go out there and you apply them. And that's the other thing that, that's the other IP that you mentioned. It's going to take time for people to really understand how you do these combinations. And that's another reason why you mentioned software. One of the things I had to call out yesterday is developing software to help manage and implement this. Now, we already have, every unit we have has data log in it and wireless streaming. They all stream to a web-based server. I can go and look at everything that's running on a dashboard at any time. And we do. When we're at our festivals, mostly what we're doing is watching to make sure nothing's going wrong. We can even control things off the web. So Overdrive has gone to the next level now. We deploy our own networks. So even
Wow.
when there's production Wi-Fi, we have a Starlink, we have these 900 megahertz long range wireless nodes. We can also use production Wi-Fi and have ours as redundant. And then we can actually turn off and on things. Luck Reunion, that show that we've done a couple times with Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
We shut off stage power at like 2 in the morning. And I understood the call to be 9, but actually the call for the main stage was at 8. I got a phone call and I picked up my phone and I hit a button and I powered up the stage from our Airbnb.
Interesting.
So, Richard was here for that. That was fun.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
the last
Let me
thing
ask you
I
a couple
wanted to say,
questions, Neel. Go on.
I just
Last
want to say
thing.
one thing real quickly about Richard. One important thing about that is he is somebody who is absolutely steeped in generators and traditional electrical systems. And if Richard has been able to change his way of thinking, understand this stuff, and move forward with it in the short amount of time we've had, and Richard's been in the industry forever, and he likes to make jokes about, setting things up on stone tablets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If he can figure this out, if he can make the change, anyone can.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, he's a huge advocate, obviously. So a few questions, and some of these are going to be really dumb. But first, is your bigger challenge the size of the load or the length?
Neither. Those aren't challenges.
Well, or I should say, like, what are you optimizing for?
Culture.
Both, probably.
Culture. The biggest problem by far is people's familiarity and skepticism.
Yeah.
And I'll take that to the next level. Okay. First of all, I don't know if you're aware, but another thing that we've come across is how overspec'd our current generators are. So when we did
That's
the Billie
probably
Elish
failure based, though, isn't it? Like, isn't that based on, well, I remember I had a problem 12 years ago at that one show that we did, so we always overspec them now.
Except Marcel, they're making them less reliable. So what we're finding, and it's not just us, there's people from other organizations that have done this, is that the generators that we use in live events typically operate at, we were thinking that it was really bad and it was 25%. What we're finding is a lot of stuff is under 10%.
Jesus.
And what you're getting at those low loads is something called wet stacking in diesels, where they have the particulate emissions don't burn off properly, the emissions control systems they add don't work right, and the generators actually fail. So generators are less reliable because the loads that we're running them at are very low. That's another thing is we've come to find that this, the supplemental power thing is a rule of thumb. Jahn did this on Roger Waters. He simply measured stuff and they figured out that they could drop supplemental generators at 2 venues that they've been getting them forever. No one ever questioned it. They just get the stuff. So first of all, loads are not really an issue because A, they're lower than you would think. B, we have that scalability. You know what happens if I'm wrong? I can actually plug in a second unit in real time.
That's
double
the really
my capacity.
cool part. Like, you could put in an X size package and have a miscalculation or gear added to a show. God forbid, it does happen. And you could just add like a module, right? You don't have to respec the whole system. You can just plug in another module or another battery.
It's one of my favorite party tricks. We fill the trailer everywhere we go. Because they'll use everything we bring. No matter what we spec, always, our clients always find uses because there's always something that is either a pain in the ass or we're not doing because it's a pain in the ass. I'll give you the simplest example. At the Rose Bowl, they had cords running against an emergency exit that went back of house, that went backstage at the main stage. And so they said, and there was a security tent right next to it. To move it to the other side so there were no cords would make it really crowded.
Right.
So someone said, "Hey, why don't they just put a battery over there?" And then we've opened up that space. We made the emergency exit much cleaner and more compliant,
Safer. Yeah.
and safer, right? Right. So we did that last weekend with a security gate. We did that with an inflatable. We did that with the merch fulfillment tents. That was just last weekend.
Yeah.
The last gig we did. So
And there's no
that
danger
flexibility.
to proximity or anything of these batteries, like whether it's heat or radiation or whatever. Like these are dumb questions for sure.
No,
But
they don't. They don't have. So that's actually an interesting question though too. So electromagnetic, radiation is fundamentally caused by changing and moving currents. We don't have a rotating mass like a generator. We actually have less electromagnetic output, things like that, than
interesting.
than a typical generator. These units, they don't run hot. Like the hottest temperatures that we see in the desert, like at Coachella, might be 120 F in the units. They run
Yeah.
fine at 120 F, and an equivalent generator, what's that running at?
Yeah. Yeah.
220, 250 if you're looking at oil
Yeah.
temp.
Those desert shows are brutal environments. That and the Burning Man and stuff. Brutal environments for gear.
Yeah, so I mean, this is like I said, why I tend to um, try to inject a little bit of humble into what I talk about, because when you say things like, and I'm sure it's a little frustrating as an interviewer when I say things like, that's not a problem, neither of those are problems, it's just the culture. It
Yeah.
sounds nuts, but then
Yeah.
take half a step back and realize that we can scale the battery storage, we can scale the power output. Those assets are
Real time.
fair
You can scale
in
it
real time.
real time, which is the cool part. Yeah.
They're easy to move. I mean, all right, weight is an issue,
Yeah.
all right? Things weigh a lot. But you know what? A lot of stuff that we deal with in live events weighs a lot. And
Yeah.
we use just here, we use 480-volt generators that are some distance away from load with a step down transformer to go to 208, right? And step down transformer is a 75 kilowatt step down transformer weighs how much? 2,000
Yeah.
pounds?
They're not
So
light.
it's
Yeah.
not like, yeah, batteries are heavy, but again, when you take that whole system, the generator, the transformers, all that addition and everything like that, it's heavy too. So when I
Yeah.
say things like that, I know it sounds nuts, but really, it all goes back to helping someone understand that, okay, they're scalable, and the things that make them scalable are easy to move around and get around. I would much rather push a rack of batteries. One of our typically sized large battery stacks is about the size of a refrigerator. A lot easier to push that into place and plug it in and take the old batteries out than to get a fuel truck to fuel a generator in the same
Yeah.
spot.
Yeah. That makes sense. Two more questions. Well, no, I mean, not for the whole interview, but just two things that are on my mind that I'll forget if I don't ask you. Um, Cost per delivered watt as compared to diesel generators. Is it less? Is it more? If you include refueling and all of the components.
The longer the show, the more cost competitive it is.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even have to be very long shows because, again, the live entertainment industry has given us a gift here. So, what's standard practices for a generator? Let's say that you're doing a show. Marcel, apologies, I don't know your background. Let's talk a stadium show. That I know a thing or two about those. Your steel team loads in typically what, 3 days before production shows up, 4 days before production shows up. So when that generator comes with the steel team and it gets started, when does it get turned off?
I don't know.
Loadout day,
Of
right?
course.
Doesn't get shut off at all in between. So when that state
Right.
generator is started, it will run 24/7 for days and days and days.
Right.
Another little characteristic of diesel generators is that they typically,
And
the fuel,
sorry to interrupt, but so yours is basically power on demand versus
power
that
on demand
is
versus
running all the time. Yeah.
not only
That
that, but
never even thought of that. That makes a huge amount of sense.
people don't realize this. Diesel generators also, um, they typically burn the same amount of fuel at idle all the way up to 20-25% load because the efficiency of the generator starts tanking as you get toward idle. Okay. So it turns out it takes almost the same amount of fuel to make 25 kilowatts out of a 100 kilowatt generator than it does to have it sitting there overnight just running to keep the consoles on at the stage.
Ugh,
So
that's crazy.
I'm gonna, pardon me, the rude guy looking at his computer, but I want to
It's
quote
all good.
real numbers to you for a second, okay? Because we just
Real
finished another sustainability report. All the data is the property of my customers. It's up to them to share, so I don't share names, but I will tell you that in one single 3-day event, we saved an estimated 2,000 gallons of fuel recently, and that's fairly typical of like a 3-day festival. 2,000 gallons of
interesting.
fuel. What are they paying for fuel service around here? You know, is it $6, $8 a gallon?
Yeah. Yeah. You're in
Um,
California.
Also the distro. Well, and that's delivered fuel and all that stuff, right? Also look at the cost of that distro again. Um,
Yeah.
Even if you own all the distro, even if you have an all-in deal from your generator supplier where they don't charge, okay, you still have to provide the labor to lay that all
Yeah.
out. And as you
Yep.
know, that can take a while. So when you look
It's
at the
huge.
cost savings from that stuff, these systems should be cost competitive. And
Yeah.
a lot of times they are. In fact, our entry into Coachella was really about being production friendly and saving costs where they had small, hard to service generators around their site than it was sustainability.
So currently the focus is single events like festivals and single shows or whatever, but is there a plan to work towards a touring application for this?
The focus isn't live events. Those are the ones who have let us in. Those are
Right.
the ones who have let us in so far. Really, it is a big cultural change. I understand. I get it that it is, you know, one of the things in our industry is that is first thing first, that artist has got to go on, those curtains have to come up, and they've got to start performing at the time that they're supposed to be performing, and that has to happen every day, 2 3 days for 6 weeks, a year, right?
Yeah.
So our entire system in production management, I think, is designed to be very, very conservative. And if you have what works, you stick with what works.
Yeah.
We think that there are huge applications in touring. And so what we're doing with Green Day right now, I can talk about that for a quick second. Um,
Yeah, that'd be good.
so when we were looking at all different sustainability solutions, and Sean is a pig pilot, one of the things that came up was um, why can't we reuse helium? Because helium is um, a non-renewable resource, and the prices for helium have come up dramatically over the last several years. So one of the things that Sean actually designed and built is a helium recapture system. All right, and that is it's been used with Roger Waters, it's been used with Coldplay. It's a slam dunk. It allows them to take the helium out of the inflatables instead of venting it, store it, use it at the next event. Works really well for tours, and it gets us out there in the touring world.
Interesting.
So, one of the reasons that we're pursuing that is to get that foothold in there, to get the opportunity. It's really easy to show festivals what we can do because I can throw it in the
Yeah.
back of my vehicle and we can go. Touring applications takes a lot more commitment from the tour itself and from us. We have to provide the people and everything. I have to say, if there's one thing I'm disappointed in, Marcel, it's that we haven't been able to get on a major tour yet this year. And a lot of it has nothing to do with the industry or the tours. I think that there are definitely tours out there who are very receptive to what we're doing. It's simply that things have happened so quickly that we haven't had time to sit back and engage those tours. But I think that
Yeah, I mean, to me, the obvious thing is you need to get into a lot more of these top production managers because I can think of a handful of them right now, like Faye McMahon, who I've already mentioned, being one of them. But I can think of 5 or 6 whose names I won't mention right now, but who are very, very interested in sustainable solutions and would be guinea pigs for something like this, as long as they have this conversation with you. Like, honestly, having just spoken to you for an hour, I trust you. You know what I mean? Like, I trust that my shit will work. With you at the helm, because you guys have designed a proper system. You know what you're doing. It's so much easier when you think of scale. It's so much easier to build this sort of technology than it is something that's getting implemented into tens of thousands or millions of cars that are going to be driven by a soccer mom who doesn't need to or want to understand technology. She just wants to hit go and the thing goes, right? And it needs to be safe. And so, yeah, I mean, to me, it's just a matter of time.
And for me, really, it's that I need to start reaching out to those production managers and talking to them. What's really cool about what we do, and I really do appreciate that's very, very, very cool that we're earning people's trust and your trust and things like that. But don't take it from me. One of my favorite things to say these days is call anyone at all who's worked in Golden Voice production, who's worked with Luck Reunion's production. You can go ahead and talk to the auditorium staff at Luck Reunion. I mean, at South by Southwest. You can talk to Sparks, now owned by Freeman and Company. They're the production company that did Google I/O.
Yeah.
And I don't even have to give you a name.
Yeah.
People who try this stuff. Well, here's a little statistic for you. Of all of the gigs that we did last year, our first year, our first solid year in business, every single client. Now, we're up to, we're halfway through the year now, and every single person that we worked with last year that's still doing an event this year has come back bigger, without exception. Yeah. Nobody has worked with Overdrive and then said, you know what, we're going back to diesel.
Yeah. You know what's interesting, Neel? Like, so I was a very early player in commercial LED. Commercial LED, similar to battery technology, was like a bug light for engineers. People were just like, "Oh, I love this." It's green and it's got all of these wonderful, benefits. And
do you remember go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Do I remember what?
I was going to say, do you remember when stages were hot?
Yeah.
No one even thinks about that anymore.
Yeah, no, it's true.
It's changed the makeup game.
But I'm talking about commercial LED, like warehouses and hotels and whatever, like just general lighting, right? And so I started a company in 2004, I think, and it was in that business. And so the whole world was going this direction of, green and sustainability, and it's better for the environment and all of this stuff. And I looked at that and said, nobody gives a shit. Like, people who are writing a check at the end of the day aren't writing a check because it's saving the planet. They're writing a check because it's saving them money. So let's focus on the financial details and the financial, because then that way, like, the cultural shift, forcing people to want to care about the environment if they don't, for example, is a really tough thing. It's a really, like, I'll tell you, the only reason I was interested in a Tesla, and I don't have one, but the only reason I was interested in one, because I'm a motorhead, I'm a racing guy, right? And so when you look at the Plaid, the Model S Plaid, the thing is a friggin' rocket ship. It's the fastest production car, I believe. I don't know, maybe it's not, but 0 to 60 in, what is it, 1.9 seconds or something? It's insane. And so that, to me, is Elon Musk saying, hey, this thing isn't just green. It's pretty fun. It's fast and it's really fun.
Absolutely right. Go on that example. We bought a Tesla Model Y a year ago, 13 months ago. We've put 30,000 miles on it. It's gone to shows in Texas. It's gone to shows in Chicago. We tow a trailer with it. We tow a 5,000 pound trailer with it. By the way, the truck's rated for 4,000 pounds, or the Model Y is. So we drive it all over LA. We tow a trailer to the Bay Area. And people say you're not supposed to be able to do this stuff with electric vehicles, right?
That's hilarious.
We've done the work. The maintenance costs have been, well, it needed about $1,000 in repairs, because I keep on driving it with the 21-inch sport wheels that it has over nails and stuff, and I've gone through 2 tires. So the next tire, I'm actually going to downgrade to the 19-inch wheels so I can get some Meteor rubber on it. That's been the only problem. And once again, I did a calculation. We're spending the same amount of money as a vehicle that got 85 miles a gallon right now in gas. By the way, we supercharge it most of the time, because where I live, I can't get the Tesla into my back alley to get to my backyard to charge it. So there's an example there of, like, of something that when in the use case, it actually turns out it's not sustainability that, and we bought it when, they had a big price drop. I think it was 42 grand.
Yeah.
You're not going to get anything that gas, diesel, hamster powered. I don't care. It's very hard to envision spending that kind of money on something that has delivered that much value. And that's the same thing that we're saying about this stuff. And that's when I go back to saying the culture part is really about us going out there, doing these jobs, speaking with people like you, um, sharing the data, sharing what we do, and continuing to try to move this forward. Because
Yeah, you're not just buying it because you're going to save the planet. You're buying it because it's the next obvious evolution of powering these shows, and there's all of these benefits. And for me, when I was pitching a $500,000 relighting project for a warehouse or something, it was like at number 10 was it saves the planet. The other 9 were direct benefits to your business. They were going to help your business. It was safer, better lighting. It was saving you money on your electric bills and paying for itself inside a year. It was doing all of these other things. And oh yeah, by the way, you can say that you're more green, but that wasn't my sales pitch, because that wasn't, what was going to sell the most projects. At the end of the day, you got to tell them what they want to hear, as long as it's truthful, and you gotta sort of come to where they're at, not force
well,
them to
I
come to
I
you.
completely agree. And
Yeah.
but here this is kind of cool too, because sustainability, there are tangibles in there, right? Like, it is really striking when you point out, when you realize that you, Marcel, have never been on a festival site without the drone of generators in the background. Not
Yeah.
once, until we did
Yeah.
Luck Reunion this year, and we managed to make it a 100% diesel-free festival. Never been
Yeah.
on the site. You've
Yeah.
never been you
That's
go to
wild.
any
That's
major
true, but
show
wild.
and you smell diesel everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are tangible benefits that are tied to sustainability, but you're absolutely right. Like, I started this podcast by saying something that sounds controversial, but it's true. Diesel generators aren't a particularly good way to make electricity. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's the best thing that we had until relatively recently. And
Yeah.
getting back to what we were saying, these applications like touring, I actually think the applications in touring are even stronger. And then outside, there are so many things in construction, municipalities, government, and you're asking about IP. Overdrive we're as much of a product development company, so we're looking at a lot of cutting edge technologies. We're looking at high voltage stuff. We're looking at direct DC stuff. We're looking at new ways to do safety. We're even looking at, a meeting I had yesterday was about AI enabled tools to help design and build these things. So now let's take the dashboard that we have that allows us to monitor stuff, turn things on and off, and change a few simple things like input current limits and things like that. And can we expand that out to where you put a CAD drawing of your site into our software package, and you put where the loads are, and it will determine your different
Oh
operating
yeah.
regimens and things like that. So
That's
there are
definitely
so
the
many,
direction to go.
and I would say that if anything, that's right now the challenge that we're having is that there's, it's a sewer hose to drink from. It's a fire hose. I'm sorry, that's the word. The fire hose
Yeah.
that we're drinking from. Um, and
Well, and it's too technical of a sale still, probably. Like, when you can dumb down that sale process and get it to where a production manager could just go, boom, here's my information, or a show, whoever, whatever person that is, the person who's making that decision can just stick some information into it that the system requires, and it spits out, here's what we think you would need, here's what it would cost, here's what it would cost if you were using diesel generators, presumably. And
what if that same system had forecasting? What if it has, I'm also on the board of directors to the Event Safety Alliance, and we do a
yeah.
lot with weather. So the big weather suppliers, DTN, AccuWeather, people like that, they have solar radiance forecast in their API. What if our system
Wow.
actually was looking at what the sunshine was going to be like tomorrow? What temperatures are going to be like? What do we think air conditioning demands are? Do we want to leave that unit alone, or do we want to swap a new set of batteries before doors open?
Yeah.
Because the solar production isn't going to be good enough.
Yeah.
We can
That
automate
makes
these things.
sense.
There's so much potential
Yeah.
beyond what you can do with diesel. And one of the things right now is, we're just trying to really build awareness and show people that this stuff works so that we can continue to grow. We're fundraising right now. I see us as a major player, and I really do believe
So
that
do I.
we can build a company that sits toe to toe with the major power suppliers right now. And let's be
Well, to me,
clear.
you'll never get there because you're going to be acquired by one of them. I still think like if I was sitting on the board at Cat or whatever, one of these other large players, I'd be looking at your company right now and saying, let's buy them before they get too big. But the other problem is going to be scaling, and so the fact that you're raising money is obviously wise and necessary, because there will come a moment, obviously fairly quickly, where it's like, hey, we need to 10x our inventory and be able to execute much more quickly or on more jobs or whatever. We need to widen our footprint. We might need a building with inventory in the Eastern United States or in Nashville.
All of
You
that
know,
is happening as we speak. We're working on that scaling. We have had some great results with some of the fundraising we did. Now we're trying to take it to the next level. Um,
yeah,
and right now, what we want to do is continue to do highly impactful, very visible, important jobs. We're actually not looking to do everything right now. We want to keep
yeah.
moving the needle, and that's what we're doing. So with tours again and things like that, we want to keep moving the needle.
Well, and Neel, obviously, better than anyone, the last thing you want to do is grow too quickly and screw up a couple jobs, because that little bit of bad news, like every time a
Mhm.
Tesla catches fire or every time a Tesla bumped into something or anything bad, there's so many people who need and want Tesla to fail. There are some very big companies who probably need and want you to fail right now. And so, yeah, I mean, the last thing you want to do is screw up a job.
Marcel, that's one of my struggles right now, actually, is that, I think that the more people get into sustainable energy at this point in time, the better it is for all of us. I mean, more successful sustainable energy activations from anyone will only help us do more business, gain more business, do more things. But there is a problem, and that is that, everything I've been talking about right now, what's happening in other spots with sustainable energy is people are deploying these really large battery systems. They're replacing a generator with a big battery, or they're doing what's called hybridizing, which they're pairing them, but they're not resizing things. They're not getting rid of distro. They're making things much more complicated. They're making things much more expensive, and they're failure prone. And it's a simple
I had the
fact that
exact same problem, Neil, in LED.
in the LEDs,
Again,
right?
what was happening is as the market started growing, you had all of these companies just bringing stuff straight from China, price being as low as it possibly could, and they were either flickering or they were a really bad color or they made clothing look terrible or your skin look terrible or whatever. It was just really a bad experience for customers who then, and I mean, I'm talking like chains of car dealerships or hotel chains were saying, we're going back to standard lighting, we're getting rid of all of this LED stuff. And I knew better, but it's a really tough road to go along at that point and say to them, hey, I'm sorry, but you just bought bad shit, and if we were to replace it with good shit, you'd be very happy. And I'd love the opportunity to show you the difference. And they're like, no, get out.
Well,
So,
now think about this for a second. We've got, put yourself in the shoes of those big tour managers or
mhm.
production managers. Put yourself in the shoes of those big production managers. That generator person from that $150 million generator company that they've trusted for 25 years is, that's who they have the relationship with. They try something with that person and it doesn't work or it fails.
Yeah.
And this has happened. This has happened at multiple events this year and last year. Are you going to really believe Neel, this guy you don't know, saying, no, 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 the guy you trust and that big company that has all these resources, they're doing it wrong. They don't know what they're doing. It's us deadbeat old race car guys from Long Beach who got this
Yeah.
figured out.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not, it doesn't sound possible too, which is why our
Honestly,
focus
I
again.
would believe you over them. I really
Well,
would. I mean,
what we
I
want,
could tell within 45 seconds of talking to you that you know what you're talking about.
Marcel, I don't
So,
want to talk about this. I'm a talker. You
yeah.
figured that out, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I'd like to shut up and do a show. That's
Yeah.
the best way to move this forward.
Hell yeah.
Every
I
time
completely
we
agree.
deploy these things, there's this, there's nothing better than sitting back, that the last song of the show is done, They leave the stage, the house lights come on, and it's like another one. That
Yeah,
is
that's
rewarding,
awesome.
and it's doing things for our planet. I mean, let's not
Yeah.
forget that we're doing good for those around us, and
One
I don't
one more
want to.
question related to the batteries and stuff. So if you were to do a tour, and let's say it's not a stadium tour, let's just yeah, maybe it's a stadium tour or whatever. But let's say it's a US tour. How are they recharging batteries in between shows?
Again, there are many different ways, and the same tour can have a different approaches. So let me give you a couple, right? So what we did for Billie Eilish was we took advantage of the build schedule. They wanted to power the show on 100% renewable energy. So we brought in battery banks and we built a solar field. Another thing that we specialize in is quick deploying solar fields. We put out a 10,000 square foot solar field, came out of a quarter truck. 4 people took 4 hours to put it down.
Oh wow,
Um,
that's
yeah,
incredible.
100 by 100. And that went down on like a Monday. I think the first show day was where the doors open on Friday. Maybe it was
Wow.
Thursday. And we just soaked up the sun for 4 days, charged batteries, and then we could use those batteries to run the show. Let's say that we're now incorporated into a stadium tour and we're working with the steel crew. Okay. We can go out there and we can deploy solar in the parking lot of that stadium outside the venue, charge up batteries. And then when production rolls in, we've got all that energy charged that we can then use to run the production camp outside the stadium. Don't have to bring in a diesel generator. Don't have to do all that distro, all that cost and everything like that with the energy
Yeah.
that we charge there. What if it's cloudy? Now we can take this same unit and we can plug it into the grid power at the stadium and charge it.
Yeah.
Is it as sustainable? No. Does it cost a little more? Yes. But we can still do it. Let's say
Yeah.
that none of that. Let's say that we don't have good grid power there. We haven't even touched on generator hybridization. But this sounds wacky to people. In fact, I got to tell you that one of the biggest production managers in our business said to me at a conference, he said, "Yeah, they're using diesel generators to charge these things. I mean, it's just stupid."
Hmm.
And you'll hear that. That was my first. That was sort of like that was a lesson that we have so much to do when someone at this level who has worked with sustainability in tours is saying that, because we all know what Priuses and Chevy Volts and other hybrids, and want to talk about that, talk about the newest Ferrari hybrids and high performance and things like that. They
Right.
pair an internal combustion engine with a energy storage system to get more efficiency and better performance. The same thing applies. We can actually reduce fuel consumption and increase reliability substantially right now, tomorrow, by taking the diesel generators that are already out there and pairing them with battery systems.
Yeah.
So what I'm
Yeah, it
saying,
makes
by the
sense.
way, that's not the best way to do it. I would much rather not have the diesel generator at all. But even when you're using generators, batteries are a benefit. So your simple question, how are you going to charge them on a tour? How do you want to charge them? Are we going to hybridize a
Yeah.
generator? Are we going to, and the best part is you don't have to make that decision until you get there. It's not
No, but
like any of these things
it
take a lot of.
it's a complication though that has to be explained properly, otherwise it's going to become an issue, right? And it's similar to when you buy a Tesla and then your first road trip you go, oh, this is a pain in the ass, I'll never have another electric car or whatever, because you tried to treat it like a gas car and you tried to do things exactly like you would have with a gas car, and it didn't work, right? And so you have to rethink, you got to change you got to change your approach a little bit, right?
Yeah, I think rethink is an important way of putting it. We'll go back to that Tesla example real quick. So 30 plus thousand miles in a year in this thing, all these road trips. You know what I learned? I have a 3 hour bladder. Really a 2.5 hour bladder. At highway speeds, you've got about 3 hours of driving time in a Tesla. I've
Yeah.
also learned that I don't when I sit there browsing the shelves of the Quick Trip after I've waited in line to go to the bathroom and all that stuff, it takes about 25 minutes, and
Yeah.
that's as long as it takes to charge a Tesla. So even though, just like you said, at the first it seems like a pain in the ass, it is absolutely no impediment. And just to put a point on it, we had, I had to fly somewhere and rented a gasoline car, and took a road trip recently, and I timed myself. I was definitely stopping less than 3 hours. I had about 9 hour drive, and every time I stopped, if I wasn't thinking about hustling, I would stop for 25, 30 minutes.
Huh.
So
So it wasn't that big of a change after all. So I want to go back to the Apex thing really quickly. So Apex Speed Technology, from what I understand, was it a data acquisition system that you developed, or was it electronics?
it was both. We did control systems. Sorry, guys. My
It's all
my
good.
other half just showed up here. That's
It's all
Cleo.
good.
Hello, Cleo. Say hi to everyone, Cleo.
Oh, hey, Dowie.
Anyway, like I was saying, Apex Speed Technology, we designed control systems and data acquisition systems, which I use. In fact, I've used components from the motorsports world
Yeah.
quite a bit in what we did. I also had a wiring harness shop, so we would build military spec wiring harnesses for race cars and things like that.
Oh,
So, and a lot of the data stuff that we do here comes directly from that.
so were you a driver or were you just a fan or whatever? Like what brought you to racing stuff?
As a rule, I don't sit behind the wheel of a race car when there's clients around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I was a driver. I love motorsports. I love driving, and I think there's a lot of lessons here too. I love the. I built this. I built a couple little project cars in my time, and right now I have this poor BMW that sits out there. It's what I call my Canyon Cruiser. I've done all sorts of engine work, suspension stuff, and when we go out there and play in the Malibu foothills or Angeles Crest or something like that,
Yeah.
my little BMW, it leads the 911 turbos and all these fast cars and stuff like that. When we go to track days, it does all this great stuff. And I got to tell you, man, like really gets driven once a week because all my parking spots are taken and I have to move it for street cleaning once a week.
Oh, that's
So
funny.
yesterday was that short throw shifter on that thing. I've got this crazy short throw shifter that was very limited production. Oh my
Yeah.
God, that feels so cool.
That's
And
awesome.
it's got a 5 pound flywheel. It revs up so fast, and like a rev match downshift, nothing feels better than that.
Fun. Where do
Did
you
I
go? Do you
mention
go
that
to like Willow Creek or
Willow Springs? It's been there. It's been
Willow Springs? Yeah.
Buttonwillow. It's
Sorry.
been a lot of places. But you remember what I said before that? How often do I drive it? Once a
Yeah,
week
never.
to move from one side of the street to the other. Because
Yeah.
the simple fact is, the EVs, we have two EVs. We have the Tesla Model Y, and then my partner Veronica, she has a Fiat 500e. They fit the use case of me, a business owner with a 13-year-old in Southern California that lives in Santa Monica and has a workspace in Long Beach and does
Yeah.
gigs, between San Francisco and Coachella and all that stuff. Those vehicles, the EVs, fit the use case so much better that no matter
Yeah.
how much I
Of course.
love those cars, and we also have this overlanding rig that's awesome. But you know what? That rooftop tent doesn't do me any good on the 405 in traffic.
Yeah.
The
That
technology
makes
that we're
sense.
developing is analogous. Are there things about diesel power generation, everything that's really handy, that's helpful? Maybe there's not a straight analog with the way the shifter feels in that 318, but it's pretty damn cool that we can haul this thing out in the middle of freaking nowhere
Yeah.
and have 12 400 amp services. Like
That's
that's
wild.
pretty cool, right?
That is
So the
wild.
generator, but let's save our diesel generators for those gigs where we don't have the technical expertise, we don't have the people. We need to make a lot of power, and we can get diesel.
Yeah.
Let's save those generators for that.
Are you doing any of the big EDM stuff yet?
Yeah, we actually, one of our early things was a little festival. It wasn't big. It was at Mammoth Mountain. It was called Fresh Tracks, and it was fun too because yes, the batteries do work in 20-degree weather.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned that. I actually, we live here in Santa Monica. I'm very lucky. There's this glorious thing called rent control, which is why I live 5 blocks from the beach. We use electronic music events locally as a testing ground. I have a couple friends who are DJs. I've been involved with Burning Man, and there's a lot of electronic music there. So we bring our gear out to the beach in Santa Monica and throw parties all the time. In fact,
That's really cool.
we're doing one 4th of July. Actually, we're doing something on Sunday. I think it's actually not electronic music related, but it's a fitness thing. We do stuff here in our local community a lot, and electronic music events are a great testing grounds for this stuff.
I have a few people I'm going to connect you to that I think could be very helpful, and some really large and some maybe not as large. It's okay. We have dogs on the podcast all the time. But yeah, I love what you're doing. And if I can ever help in any way, just, ask. Anything
First, I
do.
really appreciate this opportunity. And thanks to your producer, Jen, right?
Sarah.
As well?
Sarah,
sorry. Thanks to your producer, Sarah. For you and your audience, I would say, and I've been saying this for 2 years, give us a chance. Especially if, and this is not an easy ask. I'm asking people at the top of this industry. And the reason why I'm asking people at the top of this industry is because, unfortunately, we know how this industry works. Overdrive could very well get a foothold in farmers markets and whatever little shows, municipal events. When we're in Hollywood, we can do parties all day long, and it's not going to move the needle.
No.
Well, it's not going to change that culture that I talk about. So please, Marcel, what we really want is the opportunity to work with what I say highly visible, highly demanding, applications. Let the trust that we're building with the jobs that we have done guide you. We have some partners out there who help make these things happen. A big shout out to reverb.org. If you haven't heard of them, they're the largest sustainability nonprofit. You know what they've done for us? They paid for diesel generators. They paid to have diesel generators at Billie Eilish, at Luck Reunion on standby so that if our stuff didn't work, they could switch the generators and go. And so we have people who are even helping us out in that respect, taking the risk off of the production's hands.
Well, I think even Kadena said the first time they did the Willie Nelson thing, they had diesel backup, and this time they didn't.
What was even funnier too is that one of the diesel generators that they had as diesel backups didn't work. They had died. We decided to do a hybridization thing one day, fired up the generator, it wouldn't work. It's gotten to the point there even where we will do that for people who really, really want it, but I don't do that anymore. I do not back up my shows with diesel generators. We still have backups. It's the entertainment business. People want backups. I back up my batteries with batteries.
Yeah.
We bring more batteries.
Sense.
Because it's more reliable than a diesel generator.
Makes sense. All right, Neel. Thank you so much. I appreciate all your time. It's been fun. I've learned way too much. I feel like I need a nap after this talk. You've put too much knowledge into my small brain. So, but I'm definitely going to process it, and I'll reach out to you soon, and I'll have some names for you.
Can I make one more shout out? Because you mentioned a lot of production managers. Do you know Bill Ramey?
Yes.
Well, Bill is all into this. Bill and I hung out at No Values Pomona a couple weeks ago. I think he's coming down for dinner next week, and we're going to sit down and talk. But that's a production manager to watch. Bill is head over heels into this. He was visiting some of our vendors and suppliers last week. So I think you're going to see that spreading even at the top of the market.
Cool.
There are guys out there who are really getting behind this.
Very cool. I'm excited about it. I think it's awesome. I'm so happy that Richard put us together and convinced you to come on here. And I think we'll be talking more.
Don't be a stranger. Please watch our socials and things like that. If we're at an event where you're nearby, please look us up. If you're in SoCal, feel free to give us a call. Look us up. Last thing Beautiful. I'll say is that if you're doing anything that is for a not-for-profit or a charitable thing that is aligned with what Overdrive does, it has to align with our values. It also, and we have equipment available for it. We'll provide the gear for free here in Southern California.
That's beautiful.
So if you have a charity event or something like that, give us a call. Okay?
That's really, really cool. Very cool of you. Thank you, Neel.
Thank you.